Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Buy It or Bin, the series in which I take a newly released game and find out if it's worth picking up or if it's worth throwing in the bin. Today we're looking at Wolcen, Christopher Walken? I'm not really sure what it's called. Wolcen. We're going to go with Wolcen. This is an isometric ARPG, very similar to Diablo 3 or Path of Exile. Honestly, a little bit too similar to Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, but we're going to get into that in the video. So, first thing I want to note is that this game has both an offline and an online mode, which is absolutely fantastic. A lot of people criticized Diablo 3 when that came out for not having an offline mode, because honestly, you're at the mercy of the game servers, and if the game servers have load or aren't very good, you can't play, and indeed that's what's happened with Wolcen. The servers have been absolute crap, apparently, which I wouldn't know because I did the smart thing and started in offline mode. One thing I will say though is that if you start a character in offline mode, you cannot use that character in online mode. Why? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe it's because the game has mods. I don't know. But let me maybe make the character in offline and then take it to online when your servers are stable. But nope, you have to start a brand new character, which I'm not going to be doing for the purposes of this review. I have spent about 25 hours on this character so far, and I am not starting again just so I can test the online mode. So as you've probably already guessed, I'm going to be comparing this game a lot to Diablo 3. Now, usually I like to let a game stand by its own merits, and I try to limit comparisons to other games in similar genres to the bare minimum. But in this case, I feel like I need to. I feel like I have to compare the two, and that is because they are very, very similar, and in fact, maybe too similar. So this game is split into two distinct parts. You've got the campaign, which is split into 3 acts, and then you have the end game, which is kind of like Diablo's adventure mode, where you will be going and doing procedurally generated content, random, they call them dungeons, but it's the same as Diablo 3. It's just the maps from the campaign recycled and the enemies all recycled, just in different configurations. But you're going to be finishing the campaign and then you're going to be doing this mode. And I'll start with this mode. The campaign, I don't really want to show too much because I don't want to give spoilers, but this mode, the end game, you're going to be working on your city and you're going to be unlocking these and putting time and energy into them. And these all require money and so on. And to do this, you're going to be spamming these dungeons over and over and over again. So let's jump into one while I talk about the game. So the campaign is, in my honest opinion, acceptable. The story is it's not going to be winning any awards, let's put it that way, which again, so was Diablo 3. Diablo 3's story was very bland and generic, in my honest opinion. That's fine. It's there. It has a story, I guess. I honestly didn't enjoy it that much. It's going to be a little bit subjective. You might enjoy it. I didn't. I thought it was very bland. The voice acting was fantastic. The voice acting was very, very, very good, and I really enjoyed that. The graphics also were very good. I enjoyed that too. But the actual story itself, I found to just be a little bit lacking. But I'm not really bothered about that. I'm not really bothered about the story. I'm more bothered about the gameplay. And in these kind of games, the majority of your time will be slaying monsters and collecting loot. So that being said, I don't really mind that the campaign wasn't all that great. It was fine. It was just part of the experience. So let's talk about the gameplay and the loot then. So this game is very interesting in the fact that you don't have a set class. Whereas Diablo 3, you pick a class and your entire build revolves around that class. This game, you don't have classes. You have these starter classes, which are like Ranger and Warrior, but they really mean nothing. You can customize your character however you want. I've gone for a Sorcerer / Summoner build. And the way that you customize your character is threefold. So first of all, you're going to have your passive abilities, which are on the Gate of Fates. Now this is probably the most interesting part about this game, in my honest opinion. The Gate of Fates are these 3 concentric rings, and you can turn these to whichever configuration you want, and you can see that these ones that are lit up are the ones that I've chosen. Now the passives are kind of split into 3 different colors. You've got purple, which are your kind of spellcaster abilities. You've got your green, which are your ranger / rogue abilities. And then you've got your red, which are your more warrior / melee focused abilities. Now, you can honestly configure these however you wanted. If you wanted to go for a half melee, half spellcaster build, you are more than welcome. And you can turn this ring around to do so. If I wanted to swap out this middle row now and go a bit more melee, I can do that. I will, of course, lose access to these ones now because I've broken the chain. But if I want to do that, I have the flexibility to do that. You kind of have to sort of predetermine your path at the beginning, but you can also change it out at any time. So that's really cool, and I really like it. But I'm sticking for now with this Summoner / Plague Bringer build, which is a lot about your summons and a lot about your spell damage, and I really like it, but that's what we're going for now. So every time you gain a level, you will get a point to put into that passives tree, and you will also gain some stats. Your stats are pretty standard, but also a little bit interesting. So you've got your ferocity, toughness, agility, and wisdom. Now, they kind of at first glance look like strength and toughness and so on, but they're not really. So ferocity, for example, will give you attack critical chance score, but it will also give you spell critical chance score. And that's because the game really knows that a lot of people are going to go for hybrid builds. If you wanted to go for a sorcerer slash melee build, you can. And for example, if you're going to put points into ferocity, that's going to help both your spells and your melee attacks. And the game really accommodates that with its statistics. You're really not going to be forced into one build. You can really do whatever you want. The only real restrictions you have with your character are your abilities. Your abilities you can swap out at any time, and the only restrictions that they have is that certain abilities require a certain weapon. For example, if we filter by this, these are all the abilities that require either a staff or a catalyst. Now, a catalyst is a one-handed sorcerer item, and a stave is obviously a... staves is the plural. A staff is obviously a two-handed spellcaster. So if I run around with a staff, I have to use all sorcerer abilities. However, if I equip a melee weapon and a catalyst, I can use both these abilities which require a melee weapon, and I can use these abilities which require staves or catalysts. I have that option. You can combine, for example, if you want to be a ranger, you can use a two-handed bow, or you can use one-handed pistols, and you can combine that one-handed pistol with a melee weapon or with a catalyst or whatever you want. You've got that flexibility, but these abilities do require certain weapons. So you have a little bit of a restriction there, but the restriction is fair and it makes sense. And if you are going to swap your weapon out, that will change which abilities you're going to be able to use. So that's your abilities. That's how you're going to be building your character. Very, very interesting so far, and I really like the flexibility. However, that's basically where my interest sort of wanes for this game. That's kind of it. Everything else about this game is basically Diablo 3 again. Now, if you look at these abilities, if you've played Diablo 3, you'll probably recognize some of them. I have this ability here is the same as in Diablo 3. These AoE abilities are very similar to abilities in Diablo 3. This summon is very similar to the Necromancer's abilities in Diablo 3. It also behaves very similar to the Necromancer's abilities in Diablo 3. That's fine. I honestly, in any of these games, you're going to have overlap with your abilities. It's going to happen. Diablo 3 has so many abilities. Path of Exile has so many abilities. It's going to be impossible not to. But just bear in mind that if you've played Diablo 3, you're going to feel like I have. You're going to feel like you have played this game before. Now, one interesting thing is that, again, this game is very, very inducive to having hybrid builds. And this bar here is kind of part of that. You have your willpower on the left, which is the purple, and you have your rage on the right, which is the orange, and these are kind of this tug of war ability here. Now, as I am a spellcaster, all of my abilities require willpower, and if I spend my abilities, you can see that my willpower goes down, but my rage goes up. Now, because I'm a spellcaster, I have to wait for that willpower to come back, and I can get that back by using my main attack. But if I was using a hybrid build, there would be abilities, for example, melee abilities that require rage. And so you have this really interesting dynamic with the willpower and the rage where you're constantly balancing them. And the game really doesn't care what build you go for. Either way you go, you're going to be able to do it. You're never going to go, well, I can't do this build because I don't have rage. I don't need rage because I'm a spellcaster. But if I was to take a melee weapon and have abilities, they would require rage. So I like it. I like it a lot. Another really interesting thing about this game is the aspect system. You get to choose pretty early on one of your aspects. The aspects are your ultimate form, and once you have filled this primordial essence, you can activate your ability. I'll show some footage just so you can see what it looks like. But you get to choose one, and there are 4 to choose from. They're all pretty different. I've only chosen one so far. You can see that there are the aspect of Dawn, which is this paladin angel looking thing. You have the aspect of War, which is the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. You've got the aspect of Infinity, which is the spellcaster one, the one that I chose. And then you have the aspect of Flesh, which is more of a rogue combo looking kind of thing. And oh, I have 2 remaining points. I can unlock them now. Should we unlock them? Should we unlock the aspect of War? Let's be the Balrog. Okay, with the Balrog. Let's try out the aspect of War, shall we? But once you have got enough primordial affinity, primordial essence, you can transform into that, you become very, very powerful for a short amount of time, and there are shrines that will fill up and so on. And that's really cool too. It's a really unique little feature, and I really enjoy that. So, as I said before, the campaign is kind of bland and didn't really interest me all that much. Some of the levels felt very, very drawn out. They felt very repetitive, and this was really made worse by the fact that if you die enough times, you will have to start that entire zone again, and the enemies will all regenerate, which made these zones really feel a little bit tedious. And the main problem I have with this game is that you're going to be going through the game like any other in this genre, and you're going to be killing monsters after monsters after monsters, just waves and waves of monsters, groups of monsters. You're going to be mowing them down, and you're going to be collecting loot from them. Now, this is the biggest sin of this game so far, the loot. The loot is honestly so boring. I have never played a looter game with such boring loot. You're going to have different rarities of loot, just like in any other RPG, ARPG, whatever, and they range from white, which is utter crap, blue, which is still pretty crap, you've got yellow, which is your rare, which honestly not that rare at all. They are your normal items, and then you have legendaries and uniques. Now, the problem I have with the legendaries and uniques in this game is that they're not legendary, nor are they unique. And I'll explain what I mean in just a minute when we finally killed these dudes. So, I spent around 15 hours completing the campaign, my first run through. And in that time, I had a grand total of, you ready for it? 1 legendary drop. I got a couple from quests, but I got 1 legendary drop in that entire time. Now, at first I thought maybe Wolcen wants legendaries to be extra special, and they don't want them to drop as much because they want them to be wow, they want to be amazing. How cool are these legendaries? Nope, not really. These are the legendaries in these orange, and these are your uniques. So not only did my first legendary drop be an item that I can't use, so just so you know, I'm a sorcerer, I'm using sorcerer gear, and I'm using staves, right? My first one that dropped was a bruiser, and I'm not using bruiser gear, so I couldn't even use it. But that's fair enough, I got a legendary anyway. Let's see if it has any cool abilities. No, it doesn't. If you compare these two, here's a yellow item, which is a rare, and here's a legendary. Spot the difference. Honestly, spot the difference. The difference is it just has more. It just has more stats on it. Great. Brilliant. Now, sure, if an item has enough, say, critical chance, maybe you'll change your build around that. But in Diablo 3, every legendary had a unique ability. Just for an example, I remember in Diablo 3 there being some boots that I equipped that left fire as I ran around. There was also an item that if I got hit in melee, I would explode with knives coming out of my character. There's all of these really interesting, unique abilities. And then you had the set pieces where if you equipped enough set pieces, you would get even more interesting abilities that would radically change the way that you played your character. And in this game, legendaries are just more stats. They're really not interesting. I get that little bit of excitement when one drops and then I pick it up and I go, oh, I can't use it. And even if I could use it, I don't want to use it. I mean, I'll equip it because it's better than what I've got, but I'm really not that excited about it. So then we have the unique items, which are these ones in purple. Maybe they're the ones that have the unique and interesting abilities. Well, let's have a look, shall we? Here's some, again, bruiser boots that I don't want to use. Nope, they're just legendaries, but with a unique skin, I guess. They're literally the same. They don't have any unique parts to them. There is nothing on there that makes me go, oh, cool, that's a really cool set of boots there that I really want to use. Nope, it's just more stats. What about the weapon? Exactly the same. Just really boring, honestly. Again, the skins are nice. The skins are nice, don't get me wrong. I mean, we can look at that. One thing I haven't talked about yet is the transmog system. I don't know what the game calls it, but you have this cosmetic inventory here where you can swap out your skins. And I really like this because not only can you swap out your skins at any time, you can also unlock dyes that you can find, which I really like. You can also, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. If you're wearing a sorcerer outfit, you can change that to a heavy if you want to. If you want to look like you're wearing plate armor, you can. If you want to look like you're bare skin, you can. If you want to look like you're wearing anything you want, you can do that. And also, whenever you equip a new item, it won't override what you've got, so you don't have to constantly change your set. If you want to look like this for the entire rest of the game, you can look like this. That is absolutely no problem, and every time you pick up an item, you will automatically unlock its skin. So if we go to my weapon here, obviously we can only change staves to staves. That's fine, that makes sense. But I really like that system I mean, look at this. This weapon looks really cool. I'm a big fan of that. Huge fan of that weapon. That weapon looks awesome. But does it do anything awesome? No, not at all. It does absolutely nothing interesting or unique whatsoever. This is this giant fiery sword. And yeah, okay, cool. It adds fire to my attacks. Brilliant. That's amazing. Why not make it do something cool and interesting? Make it do something different. Maybe have fire radiate from me, or maybe have every third attack it shoots a flame geyser out. I don't know. Anything. You could have done anything to this weapon and made it more interesting than it is now. As it stands right now, it's just a fiery sword. Brilliant. That's great. Which, by the way, I can't use because I'm using states, but there we go. My point is, it's boring. It's boring loot. I don't know if they don't get it, but a big part of these games is finding cool and unique loot. And if your loot isn't cool and unique, then what's the point of me mowing through these enemies all day long? And this is where my big criticisms of this game come into play, because this is one thing that Diablo 3 does better. It's loot. Now, Diablo 3 came out 8 years ago. They've had 8 years to think of new and exciting things they could do with this game. And honestly, I don't see anything. Yeah, the hybrid class system is really nice, but like, again, the abilities are very similar to ones in Diablo 3. The loot system is worse than Diablo 3. The campaign is about the same. And honestly, the end game is the same as Diablo 3 Adventure Mode. You're doing the same thing. You're running around and doing these generic procedure-generated rooms of the abilities that you've already played before in other games. And along the way, you're going to be picking up loot that's not interesting. And that's it. That's kind of where I've come to. I've played for 25 hours of this game, and I don't see a single reason to play this one over Diablo 3. And that really sucks. I really wish it had something better, because I would love nothing more than to say, yes, this game is the next evolution in this genre, or this game is the one that replaces Diablo 3, or just honestly, this game does something interesting and unique better than Diablo 3, but it just doesn't. And anyone who knows my stance on Blizzard knows I would love nothing more than a new game to come out in the same genre and go, hey, look, we did it better. Especially in indie dev. I would love nothing more. But there isn't anything. This is the same game. It feels the same, it looks the same, and it plays the same. But in some aspects, it plays worse. And you've had 8 years. You've had 8 years of Diablo 3 being out. And look, I get it, right? Diablo 3 came out, it wasn't great on launch, and they fixed it later. But here's the thing. You've had 8 years. You've had 8 years of that game being out to learn. You've had 8 years of that. And you're going to say maybe they didn't play Diablo 3. No, they have, because some of the enemies are exactly the same. One of the bosses is exactly the same as Diablo 3. Honestly, Belial is in this game. He just looks different. There is the Butcher. The Butcher boss from Diablo 3 is in this. It's there. Oh, you want to trade me? Here. Trade me. Brilliant. Yeah, great. Cool. There is an enemy which is the Butcher. It has exactly the same hook move that the Butcher has. It's too similar to be coincidence, honestly. I'm not saying that they've ripped off Diablo 3. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they've clearly had some influences from Diablo 3. So if they've had some influences, which is absolutely fine, honestly, I really don't mind when games take influences from others, then why aren't you doing it as well? Why aren't you doing the loot as well as Diablo 3? Why aren't you doing the end game as well as Diablo 3? Diablo 3 had different difficulty tiers, and every time you got good enough gear, you increased the tier of your difficulty and the enemies became more difficult. This game doesn't have that. It has 2 difficulties, and the game just scales with your level. You have no control over it. You can turn it to story mode if you want the game to be a little bit easier, but you have no real control over the difficulty. You are just going to be spamming these dungeons. That doesn't feel... The progression isn't as solid as Diablo 3. So I have to ask myself, why would I play this over Diablo 3? And in 25 hours of playing, I can't think of a single reason. I really can't. So if you are somebody who's already played Diablo 3, I can't recommend this game to you. If you're somebody who hasn't played Diablo 3, I'd honestly recommend Diablo 3 more than this one, because you're probably going to get bored of this game just as quickly as you're bored of going to get Diablo 3. But at least with Diablo 3, the game has kind of more of a reason to play it. You've got better loot. You've got the seasons with Diablo 3, which give you some pretty nice unlocks. This game just, I don't see the point of it. I really don't. And it's such a shame. because this game has potential. And again, it's had 8 years to improve on what Diablo 3 set down. And like I said earlier, I don't usually like comparing games like this, but when your game is so similar to its competitors, I have to. You've set this bar. Wolcen has set this bar. They've made the game so similar to its competitors, so I have to. Because there's going to be a lot of people out there that have played Diablo 3. And there's going to be a lot of people out there that come to this expecting something different, and they're not going to get it. They're really not. So I'm going to wrap up there before I get too grumpy into why this game isn't worth your time. Which it is. This is the thing. I had fun with it. I can't say I didn't have fun with it. I had a good time while I played it. Except the entire time I was like, well, this just feels like a Diablo 3 expansion. So I honestly don't know who to recommend this game to. If you haven't played Diablo, play Diablo. If you have played Diablo, just continue to play Diablo. Don't spend money on this because you don't need to. You're not missing anything, and it's such a shame. So my final verdict, unfortunately, this is the first game that I have had to say, no, don't buy it. Maybe wait. Once the game has been updated a little bit, maybe when they bring out more content for it, maybe. But in its current state, on day one, on launch, at the price that it is, I'm sorry, but it's a bin. So there we go, those are my thoughts on Wolcen after about 25 hours or so of play, and I would just like to say I really do hope the developers improve this game for those that have already bought it and for people that might buy it in the future. I do think that the game that they've got there is solid. It runs pretty well. It is fun. It's just such a shame that it doesn't do anything to stand out from other games that have already been out for nearly a decade. So if you have found this video useful, please give it a like. Please let me know down in the comments, and let me know if you have enjoyed this game. Let me know if you think it's better than Diablo 3. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, because I always love to hear when people have different opinions to myself. But let me know down below in the comments. And as always, I will see you next time.